So right now I am establishing her length guide. So when I cut dry, I like to just go in and visually cut my length. I don't necessarily go in with my comb and use my fingers because her hair is gonna lay the way that it's gonna lay right now. So it's just easier to establish the haircut length while it's in its natural state. So I prepped her hair so far. I did a wash and blowout. I shampooed her and conditioned her with our Lanza Strength shampoo, and then I did our moisture conditioner. This is great for her hair. She has fine, straight hair, but it's really nice because her hair is long, so we wanted to use the Strength shampoo to keep her hair nice and strong, and of course the moisture to keep it moisturized. We did put some heat on her hair. So after I wash and blow out, I go in with my flat iron, and I'll show you a little bit of that technique. So I'll take my flat iron after I blow dry, and I'll just like straighten their ends just a little bit to curve it in, and really just kind of melt the ends down together just so that they're not sticking straight out this way. I want them more in. Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. My name is Lauren. Today we are doing a dry hair cutting technique, doing long layers and some face framing. So right now I'm just establishing her length. We did a consultation prior, and she really wants to keep her length, so I'm really not taking too much off of her length. And as I do my haircut, I go in and point cut, and as I point cut, I go in, and then as I cut, I pull down. Because we don't want to cut in when we go up, you want to cut down. And the reason why is because you'll get a way cleaner line, and if you were to be using your fingers, you could potentially cut yourself if you cut going in versus going out. So that's important. We don't want to cut ourselves. So I'm just establishing her length, and I'm doing it by eye. And I love dry cutting because I feel like I can see the hair much better when it's dry, and our customers are wearing their hair more when it's dry versus it being wet. So I personally feel like it makes more sense to cut hair when it's dry. Thank you so much to everyone joining us today on this beautiful Thursday. Let me know where you guys are tuning in from. I am from Philadelphia. So we're going in and trimming this length up. And we're really not taking too much off because she does like her length, but we really just want to have just like a clean line and really just have some of the dead ends taken off. She has very healthy hair. We do color her hair, and we keep it very healthy. So I'm gonna go in and take my next section, and I'm just gonna clip her hair out of the way. So do you guys typically cut wet, or do you typically like to cut dry? So I didn't learn how to cut dry hair until about maybe 3 years ago, and it was such a game changer for me. I always cut the hair wet, and honestly, it never really made sense to me. I felt like I could never really see properly like what I was supposed to cut. And then after the haircut was done and blown out, I felt like I had to go back in and do some more cutting to it, and I kind of just felt like that didn't make sense. So I took a dry hair cutting class with someone in my Philadelphia area, and then I actually ended up working with this salon for a couple years, and they specialize in dry hair cutting. So I learned all of my dry cutting techniques that way, and it's been very helpful. So we're still establishing our guide. We're really just going in, cleaning up the length. Her first section was right under her occipital bone. Now her next section, I'm taking it right, just like right above the occipital bone, so still below the crown. And I'm going in, and when I establish my length, I wanna make sure that I'm point cutting. So I'm point cutting, and I'm cutting as I pull out, not as I go in. And dry cutting is great because you really get to see everything as it's going on. Where I feel like with wet cutting, the hair ends up being longer because it's wet and heavy, and then you dry it and it shrinks a little bit, and then you have to do something different, and it just ends up being longer than you really need it to be, where with cutting dry, you really just get to do it all in one step. So I'm still going in, trimming up her length. And as I said before, when I point cut, I want to make sure that I'm cutting as I pull down, not as I go up. Because if I were to be using my fingers as my hold for my guide, I could potentially cut myself, and we don't want to cut ourselves as we cut. The reason why we point cut when we do dry hair cutting is because if you were to cut more of a blunt line on dry hair like this, it will look very blunt and it will end up looking kind of funky, and it really just depends on what look you're going for. But with this look today, we really kind of want to just make sure that we're having a nice clean haircut and just some nice soft layering. So it really just makes it look soft. So we're really not taking off too much. We're really just cleaning up the length here. And what I did was I prepped her hair, I washed it and dried it, and then I went in and flat ironed just her ends, so just like this. You really just want to do the ends because you want to make sure that everything is more drawn in versus out, because of course when we blow dry, it typically tends to like kick out. So we just want to make sure that everything is down and in sync. So we're going to take our next section. I prepped her so far with our Lanza Moisture Conditioner and our Strength Shampoo, and then I did a bit of our Smoothing Balm. I love our Smoothing Balm because it adds a ton of shine to the hair. It protects the hair from the heat and the sun, and it also just helps to remove any flyaways and frizz. So now I'm taking my next section. This one's kind of like right at the crown, clipping this away. And I'm combing down, and I'm gonna go back in and continue to trim up her length. I would love to know where you guys are tuning in from. Hello everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. So we're going in and trimming up this length. So what we're gonna do next after we trim up these layers is after we trim up the length, we're gonna add layers. So that's really what this video is about, is showing a different way on how to cut layers. Pretty much all of us in cosmetology school learned how to cut hair wet, and that's totally fine. I really think it's personal preference. But for me, I really wanted to learn a different way to cut just because I felt like I couldn't really see the hair properly. Oh, you're tuning in from Winnipeg. Cool. Thank you so much. So today's live is about dry hair cutting layers and face framing. So right now we're establishing our length, and then we're gonna go in and cut some layers, and it's gonna be super fun. So my client Juliana really didn't want to take too much length off of her hair. So we're really just trimming up her length right now. And as I stated before, I like to point cut. And the reason why I like to point cut is because you don't really want to get too harsh of a line when you cut dry, because it just shows off more. It looks way more blunt than you would necessarily want it to be. And of course, it really just depends on the look that you're going for. But the look that we're going for today is really just like a soft, nice, layered haircut. Awesome, I see some Texas. Oh, a couple Texas. Hey, Brenda. Cool. This is so exciting. All right, so now we're just gonna match up her length on this side really quick, and then we will get into our layering. So I'm gonna introduce myself again. My name is Lauren. I am from Philadelphia, and I am a healing artist with Lanza Hair Care. So we are just going in and trimming up this little bit. So her hair is already healthy. It's so beautiful. We did this balayage. When did we do your hair?
We put dark in it in April.
Okay.
That was probably winter.
Oh, cool.
Or
So
like
this,
October.
oh wow. So this color is from like October, and it grew in really nice. So today we are just doing a little bit of a freshen up with her trim. So here we go again. We're just matching up this side. We really didn't want to take off too much because she really does like her length, and she really just wanted to clean up some of her dead ends and just have like a new haircut for the upcoming season. So as you can see, we're really not cutting too much off, but we are point cutting everything because we want to make sure that our haircut looks nice and soft and not too blunt and harsh. Cool. Hello everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. I enjoy seeing everyone's hearts and likes. This is so fun. Okay, so now that we have established her length, we are gonna go in and start establishing some layers. So I'm gonna pump her down if I can, because I'm very short. So I am going to take her hair basically in the back of her head, and I'm going to section off from her ear and kind of just get that hair out of my way because we don't need to cut it right now. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on this side, just section, oh sorry, that was your earring. Be careful when you go around people's earrings. So what I'm gonna do now is establish her layers. So of course we get our layers from our length establishment. So I'm gonna go in and take about an inch section down the back of her head. And I'm going to pull it up to about 180 degrees. I know we talk a lot of degree terms like that from school. So sorry, I'm spinning just a little bit. So I'm gonna pull this up about 180, and when I do my layers, I wanna make sure that my fingers are like this and not like this. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So we're pulling it straight up, and I have my fingers angled down. And the reason why I have them angled down like that is because I wanna make sure that the top layer is the shortest. And if I were to hold my fingers this way, it would create a weight line. So it would technically make the top layer longer than the inside. So we wanna make sure that when we do our layers that we have the top layer being the shortest. And again, this is personal preference, and of course it really just depends on the look that you're going for. But the way I like to cut layers is I like my top layer to be shorter than the rest. So here is my ending, and then this is where I'm gonna trim off. So we're gonna trim off all of this, and you'll see the way I do it. I kind of like to glide and point cut. So I'm gonna take my scissors and open and close them. So we're gonna do an open and close in like a curve section. And the reason I'm doing that is because I wanna create some really nice, pretty layers without it being too harsh. I want it to flow really pretty with her hair. And I wanna take out some of that weight that's on the top of her hair. So this is our first layer. I'm gonna go back in. Really make sure that I am making these top pieces the shortest. And again, I like to do that because I like to have the top layer shorter than the interior layer, because if you were to do that and had your fingers holding like this, it really just creates some weight in there that some people might not like. So on this look in particular, I like to have the top layer as the shortest. So I'm gonna spin her just to see if you can see how we establish this first little layer. So this was the first layer that we just established right here. So see how that's kind of already giving her hair some body? So we're gonna continue to do that. We're gonna take a section right next to it. We're gonna take about a ½ inch from each side, just so that we can see our guideline and create our new guideline. So we are combing the hair, and I'm gonna pull it straight up to about 180 degrees, and I'm holding my fingers with a down angle. And the reason I'm doing that is because I wanna make sure that my top layer is the shortest so that I can take out any weight and create some really nice seamless layers in her hair. And as I cut, I am opening and closing my scissor. So I'm gonna take this section again, hold my fingers down, and I'm I'm gonna show you how I do this. So I make sure I open and close as I cut. The reason why I do that is because if you just cut and just like leave your scissors open like that and do that, it's number one, it could potentially be a little painful for your client because their hair is being pulled. But another reason is because it will pull the client's hair. It can cause some split ends and unnecessary slight damage, nothing crazy, but it really just is better on the hair to open and close your scissor versus pulling. So we are going back in. I'm taking half section of my previous section and a half section of a new section to create a new section to cut. And again, I'm pulling it at 180 degrees and I am going in and trimming, and I am opening and closing my scissors in a bit of a like circular motion or a half circle. So I am doing that because I want to make sure that I'm creating some nice pretty layers in her hair, and this is really just going to make it look nice and pretty and take out some of the weight that's in her hair. She has a lot of hair. It is fine, but she does have a lot. So it is nice to take out some of the weight from her hair. We typically like to take weight out of her hair. So this is the way that I like to do it. So let me know, guys, do you like to cut your hair wet or dry? So I'm gonna share a little bit of my background again. I always cut hair wet until about 3 or so years ago. I kind of felt like I just was struggling with haircuts for so long, and I didn't really like cutting hair because I didn't feel like I was good at it. So I decided to take a new approach, and I took some dry hair cutting classes in my area. And I ended up working at the salon that I took the class at for a little bit after that. And that's how I learned how to cut the hair dry, and it's been game changing ever since. I feel like I actually enjoy to cut hair now because I feel like I can see and I can kind of be a little bit more creative with my haircuts versus when I was cutting wet. I felt like it was very stationary because that's how we're typically taught in school, and I just felt like I couldn't really see what I was doing, and I would cut it and I would be like, okay, it's all right, and then I would have to go back in after it was dry and do some finishing anyway. So cutting dry really just makes it one step. You dry the hair, do a little bit of straightening to the ends, and then you trim it, and then that's it. You don't have to go back in afterwards and do anything else. So I feel like for me, it actually saves some time. Oh, cool. So we have someone who does dry hair cutting. Awesome. How long have you been cutting hair dry? And the other thing is, I feel like dry hair cutting is definitely very like sparse. Like I actually don't really know that many people who cut dry hair. So I feel like it's cool to meet other stylists who cut dry hair, because for the most part, I don't know too many people personally who do it. So we are going in to the left side now. I'm right-handed, so everything I do is I start in the center, and then I work to the right, and then I work to the left. Oh, cool. So you've been doing it for 10 years. So did you learn in school, or did you learn at a class somewhere? So I'm going back in. I'm working to the left now, so I'm taking a half section from my very first section and a half inch section to the left of it, just to marry them together and create my new subsection. So I'm going in, pulling it up 180 degrees, angling my fingers down and opening and closing my shears as I cut. Oh, cool, you're a lefty. I actually know so many hairstylists who are left-handed, so it must be like a trait or something. I am right-handed, but I know a lot of lefty hairstylists. So do you use scissors that are made for lefties, or do you use right-handed scissors? So you said you graduated slowly to dry cutting and learned wet cutting. Cool. Yeah, I feel like that's what most of us did. Most of us who do cut dry hair, it's more so like, of course we learned wet cutting in school, and then afterwards when we take separate advanced education, we get to learn some different techniques. So now I'm going in, pulling my section straight up, angling my fingers down, and I am opening and closing my scissor as I cut. So something else that I'm doing is I am pulling my section down so I can, as I cut it. And I know that with wet cutting, that's not something that we're typically taught to do. I was always taught that when you cut wet, you have to leave your section where it is and you can't move it. But the nice thing with dry cutting is, as long as you're like holding your fingers together and holding that section together, you can move the hair around, and it's nice for me because I am short, so I can pull the hair down and kind of just see it better as I cut. So as I said before, when I cut, I make sure I angle my fingers down and not like this, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'm angling them this way versus this way. And the reason I'm doing that is, see how this is shorter than this? So if I were to angle my fingers this way as I cut, it would leave all of this longer, and then the interior would be a little bit shorter. And it depends on the look that you're going for. So when I cut long layers, I typically like to have the top length as my shortest section, just because I feel like it takes out more weight, where if you were to have the top section longer than the interior, it's gonna add more weight. So someone that I would cut like that on is, I would do it on someone who has a bit of a finer hair texture, maybe doesn't have a lot of density in their hair. So on Juliana, she has a bit of a finer, straighter hair texture. However, she has a lot of hair. So for us, it makes more sense to have the top layer as the shortest versus the interior. So I'm gonna kind of show you what we have going on so far. Okay, so you use both left and right adjusted because it's mainly a right-handed world. That is so true. It's like kind of messed up for people who are left-handed. Everything's made for righties. So as you can see, now that we have some of our layers established, you can see how much volume that we get just from like moving her hair around, which is really nice. And that's what I love about dry cutting, is because I can physically see what my outcome is gonna be as I'm doing it, versus when I would cut wet, I would, dry it, and then I would have to see, oh, I need to make an adjustment now. And it's kind of a waste of time. And that was just something personal for me. So now we are going in, we are going to do her sides. And if you are just joining us today, we are doing a dry hair cutting, long layered, and face framing technique. So far on Juliana, I have washed and dried her. I washed her with our Healing Strength shampoo and our moisture conditioner. The reason I chose that combo is because she does have long hair, and our strength is gonna keep her hair nice and healthy, and our moisture is gonna keep her hair nice and moisturized. We did put a little bit of heat on her hair with the flat iron and the blow dryer, so that's just gonna keep her hair nice and healthy. And honestly, everyone's hair could use a little bit of moisture. And then when I dried her, I used our smoothing balm. I chose to use that because I wanted to make her hair nice and smooth and shiny, and you can tell how shiny her hair is. And it also protects her hair from the heat, from the dryer and the flat iron, and also the sun. So I'm gonna turn her a little bit more this way so you guys can see as I cut the side. So I'm doing the same exact thing that I did in the back. I'm pulling everything straight up at 180 degrees, and then I'm angling my fingers down. So we're going up, angling down. And after I'm finished these layers, we are gonna do some fun face framing layers, which are so popular right now. And I love cutting them dry because I genuinely feel like I can see how they're gonna look on someone right away, versus cutting them wet. It can be a bit of a mystery sometimes, because you cut it and then when you dry it, it ends up shrinking, and then you might have to do a little bit more cutting. And this is just my personal preference. As I cut, I open and close my shear. I wanna make sure I'm not going like this and leaving them open, because what that does is it can pull the hair a little bit, and it's not so comfortable for the client. And then it can cause like just very slight minimal damage, like nothing crazy. But of course, we wanna make sure that we leave all of our clients' hair healthy and in better condition than when they came in. So we are just gonna finish up the layers on the right side of her head, might be the left for you. Let me turn this a little bit. So let me know where you guys are tuning in from. I'm from Philadelphia. So we are going in on this side. And I'm gonna stand this way so that you guys can see, but typically when I would cut from the back, I would stand behind, but I wanna make sure you guys can see. So sorry, I'm in your face, Jewel.
It's all good.
So we're pulling the hair up at 180 degrees and going in and trimming. And I'm making sure I'm opening and closing as I cut. And as you move the hair around, you can start to see how much volume she gets just from these little bits of layers. And it looks so nice and blended. So we have one more section and then we're gonna go in and do our face framing. How are you guys liking it? Let me know where you guys are tuning in from. And I would love to know, does anyone else here cut dry? Or does everyone mostly cut wet? All right, so we are going in and we are opening and closing as we cut. And the reason I do that is because I want to make sure that it has like a bit of a softer look, but of course we don't want to pull on our client's hair as we cut. Okay, so now we have established the back. It looks so cute. So now I'm going to spin her around to the front. I'm gonna get some camera time. This is Juliana. Everyone say hello to her. She's stunning.
Oh my gosh, that's too nice.
Oh wait, this is a fun fact. Her mom was my cosmetology teacher. Oh my goodness.
Full circle.
I really just, for some reason, I just connected that. I don't know why. So as I cut the face frame, I like to measure with my comb. So the way I do that is I take my comb and I place it on their forehead. I think I'm gonna spin you sideways so we can see it a little bit. So I take my comb and I place it right here. Let me stand this way. And then where the comb leaves the head is the section that we're gonna use as our face framing pieces. That's a little bit of a tongue twister. Okay, so we're gonna section that. So I would love to know, do you guys have any questions about hair cutting in particular or dry cutting? Let me know in the comments below. So as I take her first section, like I said, I measured it with my comb, I placed it on her forehead, and wherever the comb leaves the head is where her section will be to the back. And then where that is, I'm taking it all the way down to the front of the ear, and I'm gonna clip everything else out of the way. So now we are gonna go in and cut this is the left side, we're gonna cut the left side first. And she kind of wants to do like about an eye angle. So this is great that we're cutting it dry, because if we were to cut it wet, it might be hard to really actually estimate where her hair will dry when it's wet. Because when you cut it wet, of course it's heavier and it appears a little bit longer. So now that it's dry, we can really see where we want the face framing to be. I cannot say that word today. Okay, so I'm just gonna take a little tiny section and I'm gonna kind of measure it. I'm gonna do it a little bit lower than her eye, and I'm gonna over direct it to her nose. And as I cut, I make sure I'm opening and closing and over directing. And the reason why I like to over direct is because the way you cut it when you over direct it, it falls has like a nice, really perfect swoop. So I think I'm gonna cut it just a tad shorter. I always like to start longer because of course you can take more off. You can't glue it back on, so I always like to cut it a little bit longer. So now what I'm gonna do is we have our establishment of our guide of our face framing, and now I'm really just going to marry everything together in the front, and I'm gonna show you how I do that. I take another tiny section and I go right below where the first section is, And I'm gonna, again, over direct all the way this way as I cut. So I have my section. I'm over directing as I cut, and I'm opening and closing. I'm not pulling on her hair. The over direction is really nice because it really just helps to have everything look more seamless. So now I'm going to take my next section and I'm going to continue on down and over direct as I cut. It's my flat iron telling me that it's been on for too long. So I'm going to go in and just continue to trim down until I run out. Okay, so we have that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my iron, I'm gonna show you what this looks like. So after you cut dry, it tends to be pretty straight. So I like to have my flat iron on for our face framing pieces so that you can kind of show off how nice they look and really just give it like a bit of a more style look. So I'm gonna go in with my flat iron and kind of just bend right here. And then we have that established. It's looking really cute. I don't know if you can see it. Is that a good length for you?
Yeah. It's a little hard to see the small screen, but I trust you.
Perfect. All right, so now I'm going to marry this side together a little bit more and basically just take from behind the ear and see if anything else needs to be blended. But it's looking really nice. I feel like everything's looking really blended. I'm just gonna kind of go in right here where I can see some hairs and just open and close as I cut, and I over direct to the center because I wanna make sure that as her hair falls, it falls nice and it falls nice with her hair shape. So now we are gonna go on to this side. I'm gonna move the camera. Okay, and we are going to cut, this is the right side of the head. I don't always know my lefts and rights, so sorry about that. We are going to take our comb again and do our measuring. So where the comb leaves the head is where I want to make sure that my face framing area is. And then I take that all the way down to the front of the ear. Now, some clients do like to have it more thick. So after you measure it, if they want it thicker, then you definitely can make it thicker. So, but for me, I like to just use a starting point as where it naturally falls on their head. So I'm gonna take a piece from the other side and a piece from the new side that we didn't cut yet and just measure it so that I can make sure that everything is even. And as I cut, I'm gonna make sure that I over direct it over the nose so that as it falls back really nicely. And I'm opening and closing. So when I say I'm opening and closing, I'm cutting like this, opening and closing. And then I'm gonna take another section right next to it and just continue to blend everything down and over direct it in front of her nose. So here's another hot tip. Something that really used to confuse me when I was cutting hair, when I was first learning, is I used to try to hold my scissors in all these crazy ways because I didn't understand how to hold my scissors when I did the front. And then I learned this trick from actually Alonza's show a few years ago. So when you cut the face framing, you want to make sure that your wrist is comfortable. So when I'm cutting, I'm right-handed, I'm on the right side of the head. I'm cutting this way, and then I'm going to show you really quick on the left side. So then when I cut this way on the left, I'm holding down. And it just is all about comfortability. You want to make sure that as you're cutting, you're saving your body from challenges over time. So that's just a little hot tip on cutting around the face. So now we are working on the right side, and I am continuing to cut down and over direct to the center. And I'm opening and closing as I cut. Hello everyone, thanks for joining us. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Today we are doing a dry hair cutting with layers and face framing technique. We are at the face framing technique now. So if you didn't catch the whole thing, you can watch the replay. And if you are tuning in from the replay, thank you for watching. So we are over directing everything to the center, and we are just making sure everything is blended. And another great thing about cutting dry is I feel like I can see the length way better. Like I can see that everything is even. Something that used to be really challenging for me as a stylist when I would cut wet is I could never really tell if the hair was even or not, and then I would blow dry it and it would be way uneven, and then I would have to go back in and kind of figure it out and fix it up. So that's another reason why I like to cut dry, because it's just so much easier for me personally to see, and it just seems like it makes more sense because our clients wear their hair dry, not wet. So now that I finished doing her face framing, I'm gonna go in on her right side and kind of just make sure everything is blended together. So everything's pretty blended, so I'm really just doing like little tiny trims and just continuing to open and close as I cut. I'm gonna come in front and make sure that the length is even. Yep, we are perfect. And now I'm gonna go in on this side and kind of just flat iron and style that front. Really just a little bit, doesn't need anything too crazy. Does anyone have any questions about cutting dry or hair cutting in general? I would love to answer them, so comment below. And I'm going to show you what her hair looks like straight and how blended and seamless these dry cutting layers look. So right now we have her face framing established. And dry cutting is really nice because you really get to see the finished product as it's done. And you can kind of show your client that the layers that you cut for them have some nice body for them. So I'm going to turn her around. And now we have the back of the hair. And you can see how nice these layers are. Everything's nice and blended. And it really just adds a lot of body to her hair. So really quick, I'm gonna go back through and kind of just talk to you about what I did today. So first, when I did her dry hair cutting, I washed and prepped her, blew her out first, and then I went in and straightened her hair with just her ends. So as I did that, I really just like took my iron and just like went on her ends a little bit, because when we dry the hair, especially using a round brush, it creates a bit of a like outward curve on their ends. And it's a lot easier to cut the hair dry when everything's more seamless and a little bit more straight. So I went in and I point cut. And the reason I point cut is because the hair is gonna look so much softer and it's gonna have a nice appearance versus if you cut it straight across and blunt on dry hair, it's just gonna appear more harshly. So of course it really just depends on what look you're going for. And then we went in with our layers. I pulled everything up and made sure that my fingers were down versus this way, because I wanted to make sure that I was taking out weight from her hair and just adding in some nice body and layers. And then we went in and did our face framing. And our face framing is really popular right now. So we did about eye level, and we really just spruced up her haircut. I'm gonna show you the before in the comment section, and you'll get a nice before and after photo. And I'm gonna show you one of my favorite products to use after I dry cut. I love to use our dry texture spray. Shake that up really well, and it's gonna add some nice body to her hair. So just a couple spritz of that, and we are good to go. Thank you so much for tuning in.